Hello and welcome to the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Dan Maldonado. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. This podcast gives a fan's perspective on IndyCar and other forms of motorsport. Before we get started, let me introduce you to my co-host, Tim Reiner. Hey, Timmy.
Hello, Dan.
How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself? It's Labor Day.
I'm all right. Yeah, Labor Day. I had a nice Labor Day weekend. Unfortunately, kind of need to labor on Labor Day. I've got things to do. I've got to make my way to Indianapolis for an event tomorrow with a customer, so I've got to do that. That's okay.
I was going to say the weekend's still here.
I
It's
know.
early on a Monday.
It is noon,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
it's nice.
Good.
But being that it's Labor Day weekend, that can only mean one thing, Tim.
What's that?
The penultimate round of the 2022 IndyCar season. I just wanted to use the word penultimate because I like that word.
I'm going to have to look it up.
You like that? It's like
Yeah.
second from the end.
Okay.
Before we get into that, did you watch any of the Formula One race? I know you
I
had a
did.
busy
I
weekend.
watched the whole thing.
Did you? What'd you think?
It was boring. What'd you think?
Totally agree.
I normally think like that when I watch Formula One. It's just I don't know. There seems to be a domination by a certain team and a certain driver, and then everybody else craps out.
Yeah, I have said it before that Formula One was boring because it was Mercedes or Red Bull, and it was just what it is. I didn't think it could get any worse, but I think it has gotten worse because now it's just Red Bull,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think Red Bull is just so far ahead of everybody with these new regulations that nobody seems to be able to catch up. Mercedes has caught up to a degree. They got some help there from the FIA, but even then, they're so far behind. I mean, it's Mercedes and Ferrari are so far behind. And then this weekend in particular, we've talked about Ferrari having issues with strategy and strategy calls, and
How
last
many
week's
tires? How
bizarre,
many
right?
tires go on?
Yeah,
Yeah, how many tires go on a
four,
car?
right? It took him 20 seconds to pull out the left rear on Sainz's car. On top of last week, right, where they were like discussing strategy over the radio, I think with Charles Leclerc, right, where it's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? And then of course Mercedes
Even
this week. Go ahead.
hmm I was gonna say even Spa was boring, and I was looking forward to that race.
I know, I love
And
Spa. Spa's
none of
fun.
them have panned out, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate. Unfortunate for the viewers to really just see Max run away with us.
Yep. Although that viewership seems to be pretty good on ESPN. So we did watch the race, you and I both. I don't want to talk too much about this, but here's another word I want to use because I enjoyed it. It's apoplectic, and it's we're using
Very
that to
nice.
describe Lewis Hamilton being left out on medium tires when the key challengers, and he was in the lead, by the way, when the
hmm
key challengers came in on that during that safety car to switch to softs, including his teammate.
Yeah.
And Lewis blistered his team for making that strategy call or
Yeah.
leaving him out there on that. And I'll save the listeners the recap of what he was saying. I am not a prude, by the way, but he was apoplectic. He
So what did
was
you think was the right call? Because that's what I'm curious. Because I thought I had the right call in my head, and then they did what they did, and I knew immediately that was the wrong call. At least I thought it was. But what would you have done in that
I
situation?
had to put him on the soft tires and just taken the chance until Russell stayed out of the way. He would have pit first because he was in the lead. They would have had to double stack the cars. How he would have come out against the Ferrari, I don't think matters as much because Ferrari had a lot of problems with tire degradation, but it would have at least been a fair fight against Max.
hmm
And we saw that when that race went back to green, what happened to Hamilton. They didn't even need DRS. They didn't need anything. He had enough of a slipstream coming out of that last turn.
hmm
And by turn one,
Yeah.
it was game over for
See, I
Russell.
thought the right call was leaving both Mercedes on the medium and leaving them up front and seeing if they could hold off Max. I thought that was the right call, but then after watching what took place, the right call was to pit both of those Mercedes and put soft tires on them and see what you can do. I don't think they were in the hunt to win, even if they put the soft tires on both cars. They weren't in the hunt to win at all. I don't think they would have gotten Max. Um, but they would have been on the podium. They would have both cars on the podium.
Yep.
I think at this point in the season, you're still for Mercedes to be fighting for podium. That's where you need to be, and I think that's what you need to look at from a strategy perspective, and not trying to win that race because the Red Bull is just too dominant.
Yep. I agree. And you're right, because George Russell finished second, 4 seconds adrift of Max. And then Charles Leclerc finished almost 11 seconds behind Max in third place. That could have been a Lewis Hamilton, George Russell 2-3 or George Russell, Lewis Hamilton 2-3. But yeah, you're right. I think they robbed themselves of taking the podium.
Yeah.
Instead, they gave a spot there to Ferrari.
Yep.
So Max leads this championship, by the way, by 109 points over his teammate, Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc, who are tied for second place.
109 over, points. Right?
Oh, totally over. Max could take a couple of weekends off if he wants to, and I think he would be just fine.
He may win it in Austin or even before then.
Yeah, which will be there. The only thing about this is you still have viewership, right? You still have people that you want to tune in. You still need people to tune in, buy tickets, and go see this thing live. But the other part of this is, I think this is a little bit of indication because of the season end last year, right? I think some people will always put a question mark or an asterisk on Max's championship from last year because of the questionable call in the booth. I never did, as you know, but I think this helps go a certain distance to erasing that question.
Well, maybe, but they've got the most dominant car, so you're gonna, take that win. And Max is a superb driver. You can't take anything away from Max if you look what he does versus his teammate. He's obviously the number one driver and gets paid for it as well, as most people know from a salary perspective. So you can put him in the best car. He's going to be dominant. So yeah, this championship that he's definitely going to win is, going to put in an exclamation point, I think, even on last year, because I think that's just, if you look at last year, him winning that championship is so much more, the driver himself with a car that wasn't as good as the Mercedes car, but he was still able to do it. So he's going to be up there in the record books too, with wins and things of that sort. Even laps led, I think he cracked the top 10 all time for Formula One this past weekend, which was crazy to see.
Yeah.
Because I still see him as new to
young driver. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't see him as that well established, that he's been around that long. So, and then if you looked at the race and you watched the race, the grandstands, it was a sea of orange. I don't think there was one other team represented in the stands there. So it was incredible.
There might have been a couple of McLaren fans in there, but they blended in with the
with Max's fans,
with the Dutch fans. Yeah,
it was unreal.
Tim, maybe this F1 needs a shakeup. What do you think? I think maybe they need a shakeup. How about this? How about we add one Colton Herta to the AlphaTauri?
Well, I think for the American viewership, that would definitely shake things up for us and make it a little more interesting. But even if he's in that, he's not going to do anything in the championship or in the fight. It's going to be a mid-field runner. But sure, throw him in there.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of that. He obviously needs the super license exemption. I'm not in favor of that. I don't see Colton Herta as being. I don't see Colton Herta as being that level of talent. I know this is going to be hugely unpopular. But I've said it on Twitter before. I don't think he's. I mean, on his team, he's probably the second best talent on that team. Second or third, maybe.
You think? No, he's not.
Yeah, Rossi or Grosjean. Yeah, I don't see him as being that good. I think he's hugely accident prone. I think he's incident prone, I should say. I think it's bad decision making. And think about it, just what you said. He's going to be in a mid-place team with AlphaTauri, trying to shake it up and trying to make more than what he can. So guess where he's going to wind up?
In the fence.
You betcha. And this is something that Lando Norris has talked about in the past, or recently, actually, with regard to Herta and Herta's experience in the junior Formula when he was racing in Europe. So is he that much different? No. Is he the guy at Andretti who's been able to get the most out of that car? He's eighth. in the
Yeah, he
championship
has.
as of
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But
So I don't know how you put him behind Grosjean or Alexander Rossi with
I
his
put him
talent.
behind Alexander Rossi. I think talent-wise, he's behind Alexander Rossi. I would
Hmm,
put Rossi ahead of him.
interesting.
That's where I'm at. I saw this on Twitter. How about Joseph Newgarden? Joseph Newgarden has the super license points.
I don't know. Does he have any desire? I don't think he has any
That's not in
desire.
the notes. I love seeing your face when I give you things that are not in the notes.
I
He,
don't. I don't think
hey,
there's any
according to Pato
desire for
Award,
him to go over
everybody
there.
has the desire, right?
No, I don't. No, well, yeah, I think all the young guys do. I don't think
Yeah.
the older, I'll call a new garden the older guy. I don't think he has the desire to go over there. He just started a family. He's not going to
I
Europe.
don't think he has the desire to go run around the midfield,
Yeah, that's what.
going from the front of the field to the midfield, just to
Yeah,
say I was a Formula One driver.
yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Why is this even a thing? This is a thing because Oscar Piastri will be going to McLaren as determined by the FIA contract recognition board. So Oscar will be going to McLaren and not Alpine. So Alpine has a spot open, and apparently Alpine covets Pierre Gasly for that spot, which would
Hmm.
then open a spot at AlphaTauri, which is why Colton Herta has been, you know, in the news with this. Helmut Marko allegedly saying he has a deal in hand, which I love this. I love these caveats. He has a deal in hand. Should we be able to get the exemption for the FIA? Right? It's similar to you and I starting an IndyCar team. Should we find Monday?
Yep.
Um, so Herta in for Gasly. Should Gasly go to Alpine?
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, where does
That's
Daniel
where that
Ricciardo
goes.
fit into this, Dan?
I don't
You
know.
must know this. You
That's
don't
a
know.
great question. I have no idea. I think there's probably, and I've heard this, so this is not just me, but I agree with it. Is there's probably still some people that are smarting at Renault for Ricardo leaving after just
Mm-hmm.
2 years to run to
Yep.
McLaren. So I think there's probably some folks at Renault that said, nope,
Yeah. So no, thank you.
find greener pastures otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Which I
does he
always
go to
thought Ricardo
Williams?
would come to IndyCar. I've
No.
been. Well, he resides in California, I believe, and I know he
So
still
does
has.
Jensen Button.
Does he?
Yep.
Isn't Jensen Button too old these days?
I don't
Who
know.
knows?
Will
He's been
Power's
out of the scene.
41 and is about to win a championship. So
Potentially.
how old is Dixon? 40
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah. Same age, somewhere
Yeah.
around there. Huh. Well, I don't know what's going to happen. I know we're talking about Herta here, but I don't know what's going to happen with Ricardo. And there's this piece of me that thinks he might make it over to IndyCar, but maybe it's not this year or next year. I think maybe
Ever.
it's down the road. Ever?
No.
Yeah. I guess we'll see.
I don't see him doing that. I see him going to Williams before he'd go to.
I don't see Herta going over there either. That's far fetched in my opinion. If he doesn't have a super license, that's not going to happen. They won't even
If
let
he
Andretti
doesn't-
start a team.
Yeah, if he doesn't go with Andretti, then we'll see. But there's more things to talk about with regard to what's happening here in Formula One and some other Formula One things that we'll have some time to dive into once the IndyCar season is over, of course, because we'll shift gears into Formula One. We'll have to wait and see, right? So as far as our feature discussion, IndyCar at Portland, always exciting for IndyCars at Portland. And particularly with the rundown to the first turn, this giant runway, literally, into a first turn funnel. But amazingly enough, the field made it through.
Yeah, it was super clean.
I was worried for a lot of people. I was worried for Power. I was worried for Dixon. I was worried for McLaughlin. You never know how thing's going to work out.
It was green the whole way until your boy Renus put Johnson in the fence, right?
Isn't that crazy? He misjudged that. But see,
that was bizarre.
Okay,
was
so
really bizarre.
I'm willing to give him a pass.
Was that a Sato move?
Because
was that one of your Sato moves?
No. To be a Castro Neves move, right? Like that fade that he does. What I would say there is, I know this is going to sound bad. What I'm going to say there is, Renus probably understands and knows that Johnson breaks so much earlier than most. He probably expected him to already have been on the brakes there, so that's why he went a little wide.
Yeah, I don't know that fade out. And then
he did apologize to him. It certainly was not intentional, of course.
I did see it on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you're a regular listener to this show, you might be expecting the team by team, or even what we've been doing lately, which has been our Power Five rankings. But I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to set that aside for right now. We're gonna change up our format a little bit because I think the discussion warrants it. But before we get into some of the meat of this, I need to reach back to the last episode. I said Graham Rahal and Jack Harvey would have a top 10 finish at Portland. Tim, you disagreed. You said that Graham would finish 7th, which was very kind of you, and Harvey would finish 17th, which was less than kind. You were off by 2 places, though. And Graham finished 5th, and Harvey finished 15th. Lundgaard, again, was the class of the Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan trio, but he threw that thing away by going too deep into the turn 1 trouble spot.
Yeah.
And he dragged a sign all the way around the track, which was unbelievable that sign could not fall off that car without coming into the pit there.
He was top 4 at that time?
He was
way up there when he did that.
He would have been a top 5 finish, maybe, or potentially better, but he definitely would have been a top 5.
I see. I had it right. If Lundgaard didn't do his issue and Newgarden didn't have his issue, everybody would have placed how I told them they would.
Newgarden had no issue. He had nothing for the top.
He had an issue. They had a strategy issue.
No, well, sure. I picked Dixon to win in Portland, which was interesting. You picked Rossi, and you picked Rossi because you said that Rossi would have at least 2 wins. And he's already had the 1, of course. Yep. But you said he would do. Not bad picks by either of us there either, Tim, because Dixon finished 3rd. Rossi finished 7th, ahead of the aforementioned problematic Joseph Newgarden. I also said that I was starting to sweat a little by sticking to my pick with Will Power, but I'm not anymore. I feel
I wouldn't be sweating either.
Yeah, I feel pretty good.
Yeah, I would feel pretty good too, because 20 points is a lot going into the last race.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. So coming into Portland, we had Power at 482. Newgarden was 3 points behind Power coming into Portland. He's now 20, of course. Dixon was 14 points behind. He's tied with Newgarden, 20 points behind. Ericsson was 4th. Palou 5th with 43 behind. McLaughlin 54 behind. Award 58 behind. I think we agreed after Gateway, that Ericsson, Palou, McLaughlin, and Award were essentially out of this chase. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
So,
definitely.
Yeah. After Portland, for sure, Palou and Award are out. They're mathematically eliminated. Ericsson is likely eliminated. He's not mathematically eliminated, but he's likely eliminated. And the reason why I say that is because he needs, either next week in Laguna or he needed this week in Portland, a perfect weekend, which frankly we've never seen from Marcus Ericsson. And that's not taking anything away from him. I like him. I think he's a good driver, and I think he's a good on that team. But we've not seen that from Marcus. So I would tell you that he's
definitely out for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely out. Speaking of the perfect weekend, Scott McLaughlin dominated this race, led 104 of 110 laps, only giving up the lead for pit sequences. This is his 3rd win on the season, Tim. All wins were dominant, right? By the way, the other 2 were St. Pete, where he led 49 of 100 laps, and Mid-Ohio, where he led 45 of 80 laps.
Yeah, and he missed out on 2 oval wins.
Yes.
Just barely.
Yep, just barely. So is it too early to say that Scott McLaughlin is an early favorite for the championship next year?
I think everybody's talking about it.
Yeah. And frankly, if he goes into Laguna and dominates next week the same way, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, me neither. He's definitely come around in that car. So he's doing a great job.
And he's a champion. He knows how to win championships.
Let me ask you this. So he dominated the race. How would you describe the race from your perspective? Exciting?
It wasn't
boring?
great. No? It wasn't great until the end, until after my guy took out Johnson, and it got a little bit more exciting there.
But I felt like there was a lot of passing elsewhere. And so I'm trying to just reflect on it a little bit. It's Monday, right? I just watched 2 races yesterday, and I'm trying to reflect on, was it more exciting than the F1 race at the end of the day, or was it, are we biased?
Well, we're biased, but I think it is more exciting than F1. I think watching IndyCar is more exciting than F1. Because here's the reason. There was a point there, Tim, where, let's face it, Lundgaard could have won that race,
Potentially. Yeah, he was closing it,
right?
wasn't he? Yeah, he
It
was
wasn't a
closing it.
situation where, Pierre Gasly or Yuki Tsunoda was going to win,
Hmm.
Formula One.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Because you figure
You kind
if
of
you
know
look
what those
at,
are going to be going into those races.
yeah, because if you look at Lundgaard on Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan,
Hmm.
you look at, you don't consider that a top tier
No.
team, but at the end of the day, they had a chance to win it. So you never know who's going to win. Obviously, Penske was super dominant with three cars qualifying in the top three. I know
Hmm.
Newgarden had his issue with an engine change or something like that, that he had
Yep.
a sixth grid penalty.
But he qualified second on merit, right? But he
Yeah, he
got
did.
demoted
So you
because of
look at
the
that, you
engine.
go,
Yeah.
man, that team was dominant. So, yeah, I'm just curious because, you know, I was watching the race and it was coming down to the end. I was like, this is so much more exciting than IndyCar or than Formula One, excuse me. And then I'm like, well, McLaughlin led about every single lap. So
Yeah.
was it really that exciting?
To me, it was. But yeah, we were a little bit biased, I guess. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear
Well,
what the listeners have to say. Put it in
yeah.
the comments or send it to us on Twitter, of
Yeah.
course.
I'm curious as well.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to jump around, like I said. So moving away from Scott McLaughlin, talk a minute about Newgarden. 5 wins this season, and he still chases Dixon in power for this championship. In any other universe, man, this thing would have been wrapped up,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of up and down to his season. Portland is another, though not of his own doing, right? With the engine change that just happens. He had a service 6 grid penalty, like we mentioned, because of the engine change. He started 8th, finished 8th,
Mm-hmm.
but he had an unfortunately timed yellow flag because I believe that this team was expecting this race to go to the finish green, which
Mm-hmm.
would have put them in a great position on primary tires over the alternates because that primary would have been ultimately stronger, perhaps over the final, let's say, 5 laps. And Power already had 5 laps on those red tires when they put them on.
Yeah.
So that could have been an issue for Will. It could have potentially been an issue for Scott McLaughlin, but it just wasn't to be. When they did restart after Renus and Jimmy Johnson came together, Joseph with an F was starting 4th at that time. And then with the restart, he was pushed back to his eventual 8th place finish. Dixon, Rahal, Rossi, and Herta, all on reds, made their way around Joseph. And because of that, he's now 20 points behind Power, tied with Dixon in this championship. And I hate the I told you so's, but man, I got to. I've said it a few times. If it's not Power, it's Dixon.
You did say that, but you got Newgarden and Dixon tied right now
Yeah.
in the championship.
And if
I
it's not
believe
Power, it's
Dixon.
Dixon.
I'm sorry. You have Newgarden and Dixon tied right now for second. I think Newgarden wins that tiebreaker, but that doesn't really matter in this
He
situation.
does. That's true.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Who do you
I
trust
don't.
more going into Laguna?
I
Newgarden or
trust
Dixon?
Dixon. I trust Dixon more.
Is it because they tested at Laguna last week or because of Dixon's body of work?
It's a little bit of both. It's more Dixon's body of work, in my opinion. At the end of the day, they did have the test session, so we'll see
Mm-hmm.
what comes out of that. I think the Chevy power plant is still much faster and gets off the corners better right now than the Honda power plant. But I just think Dixon, from his experience, his winning multiple championships, that he's definitely got the edge over Newgarden going into Laguna here,
Yeah.
which is different than what I've said in the past. So I'm sort of shifting gears here on this. And I even had a client call last week, and during my discussion, this gentleman's an IndyCar fan as well, and I said, well, it's really down to 2. I was sticking to what I said 2 weeks ago, and this gentleman's response was, "Don't count out Dixon," and it's true.
Did you tell him
He's
that's what I've been saying?
No, we didn't get that far. It was at the end of our call there, but he's there. I, yeah, I think 20 points is a lot to make up in the final round.
Yeah.
So I'm not giving either one much of a shot, even though they're in the hunt. But we'll see what takes place is it next week already? Or is it
It
a couple
is.
weeks?
Yeah.
It's next week.
Willpower
Yeah.
has to finish third or better. And it doesn't matter where anybody else finishes.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
So,
Which he's got a bunch of second places this year too. So it's quite possible. He's a win at Laguna too in 19. So it's
yeah,
possible.
yeah, Will just has to keep it clean, right? He's got to
Yep.
keep it
And that's
clean.
exactly what he's done.
Well, he got punted there by a Ward.
Lucked out with that one. Yep. He got away with it. Yep.
And being a racer, like I don't think Pato shouldn't put himself in that situation. There's no way you want to run up the inside like that and create contact with the championship leader second to last race of the season. It's a poor move on Award's part, and is kind of how I see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Bad judgment.
Definitely. You could have taken them both out, right?
Yep.
Right there.
Yeah, and that would have changed the whole complexity of this thing.
Yep, for sure.
So Ganassi team opted to test at Laguna. I think that's going to be where the variable comes into play here for them. I think Palou is out. Palou will do whatever he needs to do to help. Dixon, I think we've seen Jimmy is willing to do that as well. Where, it's hard to pass at Laguna as it is. So if you've got two, rolling chicanes, one very fast rolling chicane in the number 10 and one unpredictable rolling chicane in the 48, then, that may help Dixon. I'm not saying they would do anything bad or nefarious or, unethical. I'm just saying it's a team game sometimes. And that could help Dixon. It could help Ericsson as well. So who's mathematically still alive in this thing. So moving on to Power, which is odd that I've got him here, but Power, let me ask you this first, Tim. Of the three Penske drivers, how do you rank them in terms of road course talent? Road course talent.
In my mind, I don't think you can pick one. I think they're all even, honestly. I think there's not a weak link. I know we're just talking about road course. There's not a weak link in any of those drivers. They have the talent. They have obviously the team. And it just depends, I think, on situational things that come up during the race of how they finish. They're all going to do really well. So I don't have a pick, which is interesting because I thought about this question. And I think I would have put Scott, behind the other two originally starting the season, but now he's right there with the other two. So I think it's even keel. What about yourself? Did you do a bunch of analysis on this?
I did not. I should have, but I did not. I would tell you that a 30-year-old Will Power and a 30-year-old Scott McLaughlin, I think, would be untouchable by anybody. And it would almost be, to me, like a 1A, 1B, right? I do put them ahead of Newgarden.
Interesting.
I do put them both ahead of Newgarden because I believe that as McLaughlin has sort of figured out IndyCar and figured out his way, and the Penske dominance can't be understated, right? They've come on, the Chevy has come on. This is, there's a lot of moving parts to this thing, but you got to keep it on track. Okay. I almost feel like in some ways that Scott is a little better than Newgarden at this point. I think that Power remains a little better than both. Even at his age. Wow. Yeah, I still put them both.
See, I thought you were going to put Scott first based on what I heard, but because you said you'd have him 1A, 1B if Power was
30 years old, if they were the same age. Yeah. 1A, 1B, and it could be a toss-up.
So you're saying Will Power's experience will help him on the road course more than McLaughlin?
I do. Yep, I do.
I've been thinking of this too because they've been so dominant this season, which is last year they weren't, right? They had a rough season last year. Is it, and you don't have to answer this, maybe I'll leave it for the listeners, but is it good for the series to have Penske dominating the series he owns?
I think if it continues on, there's always a question. But if Ganassi weren't right there I think it could definitely be a problem.
Yeah, it definitely could, right? Because
Yeah.
then people will be like, "Oh, he owns the series. He wins the series. He wins this and
Yep.
the championship." Obviously, didn't win the Indy 500 this year, but if he won that too, you'd be like, "Wait a minute, what's going on?" Not that
Yeah.
anything's fixed or anything like that, but it just makes me reflect and go, "Huh, is it good or bad for the series?"
Yeah. I think if it's ongoing and nobody is there, if it were an F1 situation where, there's one team dominant, so far dominant, then I think that's where, yeah, it becomes a problem. But
Yeah,
Ganassi will be there to make sure that,
and
he
hopefully
keeps
others,
them
right?
honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Power remains my pick for the championship, Tim. I don't know what else I can add to that. It was said on the broadcast, like I mentioned earlier, he just has to finish third or better at Laguna. He finished second in 2019. Sorry, I think I said when. He finished second in 2019. Nonetheless, he's been the model of consistency all season. I did not do that analysis, but he continues it.
Yeah,
Right,
he
he was
does.
average finish of six something last week. Finished second
Yeah.
yesterday. So
Yeah, and he seemed
so,
happy with his result this past
mhm,
weekend, right? A second,
yeah,
even though I could tell he wanted the win, right? He really wanted to be able to get McLaughlin, but he
sure,
got passed by um Lundgaard at the beginning there. And so he said it was difficult for him to sort of do his thing.
yeah.
Um,
But it
so
was,
he's definitely the pick for the champ. Like he's 20 points ahead.
yeah,
I don't see him doing anything crazy. Nobody should get in his way, right? People are going to be, I would say, race him a little with a little more room, just so they're not punting him, because
yep.
obviously you don't want to end someone's championship hunt that way. Uh, so I've switched. I've been all over the board. I don't think Newgarden's going to do it. I don't think Dixon's going to do it either. So I'm going to stick with that. And yeah, you've got your championship winner, I believe, but
Yeah,
that's why they race the race. Anything can
that's
happen.
right. That's right. I saw something on motorsport.com that suggested that Will had asked for team orders toward the end of that race, that they would have
Oh,
switched places with him and Scotty Mack. Um, I would probably have a problem with this had there not been a quote in there from Scott Dixon saying, I'm surprised they didn't. Meaning,
hmm.
Scott was surprised that they hadn't changed positions with
And swap
Will and Scott.
positions.
Scott is still in this mathematically, although it's a long shot, right?
Yep.
But that's also giving favor to Will over Newgarden, who is less of a long shot
Hmm.
on that thing.
Yeah, and
And
that's
that
what I
would have put
said a
that
few
away for
races
them.
ago when there was
Yes.
questions
Yes, you
about
did.
switching that up, and I was like,
Yep.
Newgarden's going to be not
Yep.
happy about that because he's in the
Yeah.
title fight and was in second place and he's tied for second place now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think you can do it. And then I saw the interview with Dario Franchitti after the race. I don't know if you saw
Long
that.
interview with Dario Franchitti after the race. I
Yeah,
was surprised at how much time I spent with him.
I know, but it was good to see his perspective too, and talking about Dixon, knowing when to push and when to sit back and how to save the tires and fuel and all that. And but it it almost looked like Dixon was pushing really hard on Will at the end there, which at the end of the day, if there was a thought of swapping positions, would have made it more difficult for Penske to make that decision because it was less than a second gap
Right.
between the two being Will and Scott. And so, how do you do a swap of positions and potentially give up, a second place if Scott's willing to pounce on that? So, I think Scott had a little bit to play in it, and I think it just goes to Scott's savviness and how they operate there at Chip Ganassi within that team, that specific team, and how Dario's involved as well, because I don't think anybody
Mm-hmm.
really hears that much of how Dario's involved, but I think he has something to do with that strategy as
It
well.
feels like, yeah, he's got something to do with strategy,
So
right?
that was a little more of an inside scoop than I think
Mm-hmm.
most of the fans get in talking to, a race strategist, if you want to, or driver coach, whatever you want to call
Yep.
Dario. So I'd love to see
No, all
coming
the
from
driver
that.
coaching is on the 48 pit box. Scott
Oh, it's
Pruitt,
Scott
Tony
Pruitt, yeah, doing
Kanaan,
the yeah.
yeah, doing
But
everything
I
they
think
can.
throughout the paddock, I wonder, like from each team, who those guys are, and just to get their perspective throughout this season through the broadcast would be good, just from the viewer understanding, what they're thinking as they're going through. So I really liked that interview, even though you said it was long. It,
It
it
was
was
long.
it was
Yeah. I
something.
liked it too, but
Yeah,
I was surprised at how long it went.
yeah. No, it was good.
Surprised at how long it went. All right. Moving on to Ganassi. So Palou is eliminated from repeating as series champ. He's 66 points behind. I think still a fantastic effort by him. No wins yet. He could still win at Laguna. Fantastic effort by him, especially since, the fit hit the Shan.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
totally
after
did.
Detroit with the contract and
He
the
was out of it
McLaren
at
stuff.
that point.
Yep.
Honestly, we should have all realized that. Maybe a lot of
I
people
don't I
did.
don't know if you say out of it. He's right. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth in the championship. I don't know if you say out of it.
Well, I just mean he was out of contention at that point. Once you have, in my opinion, once you have that sort of issue inside the team and you're trying to leave the team and they're trying to keep you, I don't think you're really
Under
running
normal
for the championship.
circumstances,
Yeah,
yes, you're right. But he
no,
still maintained a pretty high
he
level of
did.
efficiency on track.
He
So
did.
given everything
He had
that was
some type
going
of
on.
issue this past weekend. They were saying
Yeah,
something.
there was something weird there, right? There was something weird there to that car. They couldn't get a handle on.
Yeah.
Um, we'll see what happens there. Of course, I mean, while talking about Palou, it sounds like they're in a second round of mediation, is what I read. I also read that Arrow McLaren is now saying that they're willing to pay some compensation to get Palou out of that deal, which they were saying earlier that they signed a deal with a driver that they expected was available, and so they wouldn't be paying. Well, now it sounds like they'll be paying. So maybe this contract situation with Palou get wrapped up now, if McLaren's
So.
willing to offer some compensation.
Yeah.
So I'd hate to see him sidelined for a year or two. I'd hate to see him, move off to Formula E. Not because I have any disrespect for Formula E, but only because that's obscurity, right? He's going to fall off the planet for a year, and we're not going to see or hear from him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've said it before. I'll say it again. Ericsson, I think, is eliminated. He is 39 points behind. There's 54 points total for a perfect weekend, which we've not seen from Marcus Ericsson. So, how does that reconcile against what we said about Scotty Mack? Because I think you and I agreed. Scott McLaughlin is still kind of in it. Again, long shot. But we've seen perfect weekends from Scott McLaughlin. We've not seen that from Marcus Ericsson.
Yeah.
I think that McLaughlin's going to finish ahead of Marcus in the final standings. I don't think either one of them, though, are going to steal that championship from Power, Dixon, or Newgarden.
I don't think so either. I think they're too far out, right?
Kind of the best of the rest. Yep.
Yep.
And you said it earlier that you trust Dixon going into Laguna.
Totally.
Yeah. Based on
He's
a lot of
super
things,
savvy,
right?
yeah.
He's smart. He's good. He knows what he's doing.
But Power's also built trust over the season, which he hasn't had. So I think.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see like any bonsai moves or any crazy thing happening from Power.
Or even on Power, I don't think people will put themselves in that position. You get a bad rap in the paddock. You don't want that to happen. So I think it's going to be a clean race. Could be as clean as Portland was, right?
Yeah.
If it's that clean, I don't think Power has any issues pulling this off. Again,
but
Dixon
I think it's
and Newgarden are going to go for it.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on where the Penske's qualify versus the Ganassis. I think that's going to be key, right? If Penske has kind of a bad qualifying effort, which nothing suggests that they have or will, but
if it's based on qualifying, you go based on the season, with the exception of Indianapolis.
Yep.
Penske's got the edge on that over Ganassi all day long.
Yep.
Because you look at what Dixon did. He started 16th and finished 3rd. So qualifying was way out compared to 1, 2, and 3 for the Penske boys.
Yeah. Dixon's always one great strategy, right? With that. I think that's always interesting. Hey, speaking of, I want to say that prior to Palou's contract situation, that Ganassi, Chip, was on Palou's timing stand. Is that right? Do you remember that?
Not sure. Was he?
I want to say that he was, but yesterday, Chip and Mike Hull both were on the Dixon stand.
That would make sense though, right? They probably both wouldn't be on the same stand in a normal
Not
situation.
normally,
So
yeah.
yeah, you probably
Yeah.
did swap seats, if you will.
Yeah. Because he's the one suing him, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to be there
Yeah, I
in
don't
that
think you
close
do
proximity,
either.
I guess, right? I mean, it's kind of awkward.
Yeah, totally.
Championship standings going into Laguna. Power leads 523 points. We mentioned a few times Newgarden and Dixon tied 20 points behind. Ericsson 39 behind. McLaughlin 41 behind. Pillow and Award eliminated. And the seemingly F1 bound Herta not even in the picture.
It's not happening.
So,
He's not going to F1.
nope. Yeah, I don't think so. Some other thoughts, Tim. Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. We talked about them in the top of this piece. Has some positive momentum headed into the off season. Hopefully they can keep this up. Hopefully they have found something and can turn the corner, add some personnel, which is what we were told in Detroit they needed. Right, they were short on personnel engineering. Having added the third car, which I think was probably unexpected at this point, but hopefully they found something and they can turn it around. I hate to see that team because they got great sponsors, man. They got a great family of sponsors within that team. Graham doesn't have to say it, but I guess he feels compelled to, I haven't forgotten how to do this. He said it yesterday,
He did,
which is
that.
fine. He said that Jack hasn't forgotten to do that. I'm glad he said that. But no, I don't think anybody forgot to say that. And I think that comes to Graham's mind because, of course, we've heard from Graham, he ran out of talent. So anybody who has that in their tongue about a fellow competitor probably has the need to say that he hasn't run out of talent. But, we'll see what happens there. Hy-Vee, we've talked a lot about Hy-Vee and the splash that they've made in IndyCar, and they're on Jack's car, and Jack's the one that's struggling the most at this point. So would love to see that whole program get turned around. And I'm a huge fan of Jack, and I'm nervous about what that looks like going forward.
Yeah, he hasn't done so well this season at all. So, and he's been the third driver really from a results perspective and trying to turn that around. So we'll see what transpires obviously next week, and then obviously in the off season and into 2023. But they've come around here at the end of the season, which everybody thought they would do it sooner in the season, and it just hasn't come about. Question for you though, there was I don't know 6-7 laps, and Graham was right behind Pato. What kind of odds did you give them of passing Pato there in the final 6 or 7?
Not good.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah,
and I just didn't think from where they were and coming through the field as Graham did. I wasn't sure he would stuff it inside a Pato at some point, and I know he tried there on the backstretch and just didn't have enough to get by him. But I think when you look at the broadcast and you look at trying to, I don't want to say create excitement, but you want to make it very interesting for the viewer. I look at that and go, wow, they're really talking this up. Like Graham's going to go after Pato. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I don't think Graham's going to do it. Right. I
no,
don't
me
think,
neither.
and he didn't. And, but I was asked by one of the young ones in the family, do you think he's going to do it? And I was like, no, straight up. And it's nothing against Graham. Obviously Pato's a great driver too, but I think it's risk versus reward. And when you look at risk and you look at where you're at from an age perspective, you sort of dial it back, I would say, just a little bit in those circumstances. And you look at
Power, Scott Dixon, right? Perfect example of what you're saying.
Yeah. And you go back, and I think you even reflect on the season, because I think Graham's kind of taken more of a ownership role than a driver role. And it's just how I see it kind of play out over there, that it's like, it's a top 5. We're happy with the top 5. If I put it somewhere, we could throw this, throw this in the trash, our result. And he just wouldn't do it. So I'm glad the broadcast is trying to, make it more interesting for the viewer, but at the same time, being an avid watcher, you look at that battle and you go, I don't think anything's going to happen there. Yeah. And that was the case for that one.
I think I agree with what you said. I just want to add this. I think there are guys who, you can get away with maybe a riskier pass with, and guys you can't. And I would still say that I think Award is a guy you can't get away with a riskier pass.
No, you got to be
Yeah.
all the way there.
Look what he did to Power.
Yeah,
And he knows
exactly.
who Power is, and he knows where Power is racing in
Mhm.
this championship. And look what he did to Power in that restart.
Yeah, and he threw it in there from a long way
Yeah.
back,
So what
car
do you
and a
think
half
he's going to
back.
do to? Yeah. What do you think he's going to do to a Graham Rahal trying to, stick a nose in there?
Yeah, he's
Right.
gonna
He's
shut
going to
that door
send
real
Graham
fast.
home early. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So smart move on his part not to make
Yeah.
that, but man, I'd love to see it happen. It was one of those things I'd love to see him be able to, take something very late in that race and get another position and almost end up on the podium at that point. But even Pato had to give up that, just to talk a little bit about Pato and his aggressive driving. He had to give up a spot to Dixon in order, because he blocked on Dixon.
Yeah.
And I love the interview after the race that he was like, well, they gave me that penalty. Just hope they give it to, the next guy that does it to me.
Well, not
So
everybody does it, dude.
that's a good point, right? But
Right?
he
Most
obviously
people know
feels
better,
others
dude.
have done it to him and they haven't
Yeah.
got penalized. So that's was his way to sort of, say, hey, the penalty is what it is. I didn't like it, but if they're going to call that, then call it when it happens to me.
Yeah. Other thoughts, our new favorite team and driver, Callum Ilott and Juncos, second top 10 of the year in Portland. We expect this team to add a second car in 2023. We had a wonderful talk with Ricardo Juncos at Detroit, and that's why we feel that way. I hope that elevates this program and it doesn't choke this program.
Yeah,
because it's
great result by them. I was happy
Yeah.
to see them up there. I tried to buy their hat. So can I just talk to Juncos for a minute?
Of course, it's your show.
So I tried to go and buy their hat because I was like, you know what? It came on the Twitter feed to say, hey.
Wasn't that odd that he was wearing that hat, though? I've never seen him wearing that hat after a race before.
The green one? That was the one that was for sale, the exact same hat. So I'm thinking, so I went to buy it before this broadcast. So it must have been right after our last show. And the only way I could pay is through PayPal. That's the only option you got.
That's weird.
And I don't have PayPal, so I couldn't buy it. I wasn't creating a PayPal. So
let me get you one. I have a PayPal, of course.
Yeah. You do have one? Yeah, you can send one to my house. But so just take other forms of payment, please. That's my only request for Juncos at this point. They've had a great season, just other forms of payment, and I'll order one. That's all I had on
it. I was listening to Connor Daly and Joey Molinaro's Speed Street podcast with Callum Ilott, and I'm an even bigger fan of Callum Ilott after that interview. He also speaks the same way I do, and you know what that means because you know me well. And I'm an even bigger fan of Callum Ilott.
I did not listen. I did see that he was going on the show. I did not listen to it, so I'm gonna have to do that. I did enjoy the interview after the race, though.
Yeah,
by Callum.
It was great to see him on that. Right, it was great to see him on that. I'm such a huge fan of that team, and I pull for that team because they're transcending what their station, right? The size of their team, their one car effort, the whole bit.
Yeah,
can't beat Hart, dude. Right?
No, you can't. And he's got talent, and the team has put together what they can with the limited resources that they have. And I think it's just about keeping it simple. I think some of these big teams make it way too complex. And I'm thinking of Andretti Autosport. You just make it too complex and you don't get the results you need. And if you keep it simple and get down to the basics, which I believe the team is doing, you'll find good things come out of it. And have a good culture. We heard a lot about culture, and they must have a great culture there because there's others on the grid that do not get results, and it comes down from what we heard on a culture perspective.
Yeah. Andretti Autosport could lose two of their top drivers. We know that Rossi, so I guess he could lose two this season. We know that Rossi is gone for sure. He's going to Arrow McLaren, but with what we talked about early is that Colton could potentially be in the mix at AlphaTauri. I saw something that said that Helmut Marko, right? Jenna Fryer, the Associated Press, had something on Twitter talking about it. And Helmut Marko was saying something about it, saying that he has a deal for her to race at AlphaTauri if they can get the exemption, which, that's a big, big if. So if that happens, Tim, we know that Kyle Kirkwood is going to be in for Rossi next year. That's already been announced. He'll be leaving Foyt to go to Andretti. Who goes in for Herta if Herta leaves?
I think you put Ryan Hunter-Ray in there.
I'm just going to hang up now and you can finish the show.
No, honestly, I just had to say that. I think
know.
you put Matt Brabham in there. I think you go from the Indy Lights side and you just bring him in and bring him up. He's second in the standings right now over his 10 race, in Indy Lights with Andretti. He's got the best results out of the 4 Andretti Indy Lights drivers. So I think you go back to that. Why have a feeder system if you're not going to use it? I wouldn't put Stingray Rob in there. I just obviously his name's cool, but
give him another year in Indy Lights. Yeah,
he's been in there. He's had 30 races, and he's 4th overall in the standings right now,
which is good.
Which is okay. It's not.
Marcus Ericsson is 4th in the IndyCar championships. Would you call that okay?
Well, if you have other drivers in the series, which he does, that are higher in the standings,
right.
I think you pull.
Well, yeah, he's 4th. He's got 3 guys I hire. Yeah,
yeah. So I don't know. That's where I go. Where do you go on this?
It's interesting. I go in a lot of different directions as I normally do. The first name that comes to mind is Oliver Askew. Askew was in that Formula E program with Andretti. So again, could be considered a feeder series. They have a lot of experience with Oliver Askew. And then he, of course, was unceremoniously booted from Arrow. And I think he has some unfinished business there. I like his name, Oliver Askew's name, as a replacement for Colton Herta. As much as it pains me to say it, Callum Ilott leaving Juncos,
though, right?
Yeah, but you never know, right?
You never know.
Callum Ilott,
Malukas.
Yes. So here's the third place I want to go with that. David Malukas. If we rewind to last year, probably around now, I said it. If I were Roman Grosjean, I wouldn't go to Andretti. I wouldn't leave Coyne to go to Andretti because I didn't necessarily see it as a step up. Right?
Wow,
I didn't necessarily see that as a step up. And it's proven it. Because I don't know that his results at this point are any better than they were with Dale Coyne. So that's number one. If you're David Malukas, I think you stay with Coyne. You don't fill that seat at Andretti if it becomes available. If the 10 becomes available, which we think it will be at Ganassi, then I think that's where you go if you're David Malukas. Because that's definitely a step up. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Is Andretti a little bit better than Coyne? Sure, a little bit. But Coyne always has a way of bringing that thing forward, that program forward. So, you stay with your dad, you stay with your dad's company, your dad's participation, you stay at Coyne. But if you got a chance to go to Ganassi, where you're challenging for wins everywhere, then that's where you go.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this question that you posed on this, and there's some other things that are probably a little ways off, but the other names that came to my mind were
Sebastian
Montoya. Yeah, Montoya. And then even oh Lord, it just dropped me. I had another name, but I can't remember it right now.
You weren't going to bring up Weldon's kid, were you?
Yes, the Weldons. Yeah,
I don't know how old that kid is. Yeah,
I don't think that he's old enough yet. Yeah. So obviously they're in this. So is those two that came up. Yeah.
We'll see. What happens there. It'd be interesting if Colton Herta can get the exemption from the FIA for the super license. We already know that 2 team principals have come out against it, and it's the team principal at Sauber and Gunter Steiner at Haas, which is interesting because they got roasted by saying you're the American team who's opposed to the American driver. You're the alleged American team who's opposed to the American driver.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah. So I guess that's, we'll see what happens. But if it happens, it's going to happen quickly because I think they would probably want to have Colton hanging out with the team in the final races in Formula One, because that season's going to go on. They don't care about the NFL. That season's going to go on, right? That's going to go into November. So that could be a possibility. And look, if Colton goes to Formula One, I will root for him, you know, loudly and with great, you know, angst, because I want him to succeed. I'd love to see an American driver succeed over there in Formula One. You also have a Formula One driver who's American that's doing very well in Formula Two, and that's Logan Sargent, who could be moving up to Williams as well. So
yeah, I don't think anybody knows him here in the States, though.
Yeah,
it's kind of one of those.
Right, but you know Herta and you know the name, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you're an open wheel U.S. open wheel fan, you know the name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think there's no way around that. So
I can still see the shell car, by the way.
I know, me too. Yeah. I can still hear him cursing out his pit crew too when he was in the Target car, the Target Scotch car at Michigan Speedway.
Really?
When he was a teammate to Jimmy Vassar. Yeah. That's it. That's all I have.
Yeah,
you got anything?
You know, I do have one thing. It's we went to one of the fairs, and Dan, they had tractor pulling.
I love tractor pulling,
and I haven't seen tractor pulling in all these years. And
have you seen it before? You just haven't seen it in a while.
I used to go to Bowling Green.
Yep. Yeah.
I used to go to Bowling Green State Fairground and watch tractor pulling. And we ended up going there. I took some video, put it on our Instagram account. But I guess I'll call myself a gearhead, even though I'm really not a gearhead, because I don't wrench on anything. That's the only reason I say it.
Right.
Is that just the sheer horsepower and noise and excitement? Tons of people out there thoroughly enjoyed it. And you know what the cost was to get in, Dan?
$10.
Nothing.
Oh, that's awesome. Where were you at?
In Metamora, at the Metamora State or Metamora Fair. And we went up there for hot air balloons, and the surprise was there was tractor pulling.
That's great. I told you I want you and the kids to come down so we can go to Flat Rock Speedway and see the figure eights and see the bus races and all that stuff. Yep. I think that'd be
all
fun.
In. Anything that races, we're all in.
Yeah. So thanks, Timmy, for taking time on your Labor Day to do this recording and handling production, because of course I've got a quick family thing, and then headed to Indy for a customer function tomorrow. So, and my boss will be there, and the rep that works for me in that market will be there as well. So I can't.
You're golfing? I know you love golfing.
I am. So my clubs were still in the travel bag from October last year when I golfed at another customer golf outing, and I haven't looked at them since. I couldn't even find my golf shoes. So when I told you I didn't get a workout in this morning, it's because I couldn't find my stuff.
You needed preparation.
In 18 years working for the company that I work for, I couldn't find a black hat with our company logo on it for tomorrow. That was another issue. So, but I did find a bag of hats that I was like, oh, wow, look at all this. I forgot I had these.
Good stuff.
So, yeah. All right.
Well, good luck golfing out there. Good thing it's a scramble, right? If you haven't golfed in that long, you just
hit it and
I'm
go. I'm praying for rain.
You're praying for rain.
I'm praying for rain.
So I have to do some travel. This is a total golf thing, and I have to do some travel in a couple of weeks. And I'm actually the first day I get in, there's a golf outing, and I didn't sign up for it. I'm going in later, so I don't have to golf because I'm like you. I could take it or leave it.
Yeah,
I'm on the leave it side.
I'd rather spend 2 hours on my bike.
As would I. Hence, I've got a bike in mind. Nobody has clubs in this.
Nope.
In this video, we all got bikes.
Nope, that's right. So, thank you to listeners. Appreciate you always tuning in. I hope everybody had a great Labor Day weekend. Summer's not over, but summer season might be, but summer is not over. So let's do everything we can to continue to enjoy it. Also, continue to engage with us on social media. Talk to us. We love it. And we answer, I think, almost every time, right, Tim? Everywhere we can. Twitter
much.
And in the
YouTube
response
comments. Or a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Yeah, we always acknowledge everything we do there. So we appreciate it. And looking forward to the off season. So send us some ideas. I've already got some ideas written in here. Tim is going to set us up with a tour at Shank because he knows someone. So hopefully we can pull that one off. I think that would be outstanding.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you after Laguna.
Take care.